Well, welcome to this story time from Australia, story time number 57. And now the writing of this has been a little bit on the chaotic side. This morning, I got up to finish it off after the chaotic night practicing some music stuff. And then the puppy came in crying and collapsed down on the floor, and we thought she'd been bitten by a snake. So we all raced off to the vet. And she's fine. She just had a bee sting, but that took up most of the morning. So this has been finished this afternoon, just in time. It's a little shorter than my readings typically. Our overarching themes today were alternative modes of transport. I'm wearing a pair of wings, which you can't really see, but that's my rather absurd alternative mode of transport. We've got the TARDIS in the background, and my old tricycle orange is here to have his wheels spun. We've got Scruff the rabbit hitching a ride on the robot, and we've got a hitchhiking tax in the background. And our characters are going to be going on some interesting modes of transport. A few propellers around the table as well.
And there's a dog sled down under the table.
Yeah. The other thing that was one of our main themes was embarrassing games that you may have been asked to play at parties or gatherings. I think I'm a bit unusual in this because most of the ones that people would say are really embarrassing ones, I've actually quite enjoyed. They're just silly. But I will say I remember being very embarrassed as a child playing Pictionary and getting words like period and being only able to think of the feminine interpretation of this. I found that very embarrassing, and I also was very embarrassed by computer games because I didn't play them at home. So when I went to my friends' houses and they wanted to play on the Nintendo or something, I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just really very humiliated by that. But does anyone have tales of embarrassing games?
No, I remember ghastly things like going to Tupperware parties and having, they put all these clothes on a clothesline, and a game like how many pigs can you take off and keep in one hand? It was like, why? I could never, why is that fun? Let's just have some tea or
I think the funnier version of that is how many pegs can you attach to your face in different spots? I haven't done it, but I've seen it.
That sounds painful.
Yeah. And most of the awkward games I think I've seen and mostly tried to avoid were baby shower ones.
Yeah.
So the nappy with melted chocolate, and you have to work out which chocolate it is. And then getting people in pairs of like two adults, and one has to spoon feed the other one, but the feeding person's blindfolded and the eating person doesn't have their hands.
Oh, no.
And it's like actual baby food.
That's nasty.
Yeah. Those sound very unpleasant. I would not like to play those.
Sarah, I saw an embarrassing game on Facebook World Technology the other night.
Yes.
Is that worth sharing? It was in America, of course, which only could happen in America. You sit in a row of chairs with a bucket of water, and you're blindfolded, and you pass the bucket of water over your head to the person behind you, and you fill up their bucket, and you can't see what you're doing. And of course, the water doesn't go in the bucket behind you; it goes on their heads or their whatever.
Yeah.
But this is my favourite game.
It's your favourite game, yeah. All right. Well, so in keeping with embarrassing games, we also had as a topic exit strategies for awkward situations. If you ask your friend to call you and help you escape or something, and one of such possible exit strategy that we thought of was falsely confessing to something. Oh yes, actually that is the situation, just to get away. When your reluctant partner is dragged into a social engagement of yours,
that'll never happen.
Completely losing the thread of your speech, conversation, etc.
All the time.
Updates wreaking havoc. Those automated answering machine options that never include the issue you're calling about. When the computer doesn't understand your accent and you're supposed to tell it what the problem is that you're calling about. Ticket machines for public transport. What dish you pick to judge a restaurant or beer to judge a brewery. And reading people's minds. So the poem that I've done to introduce today's story is based on that idea of completely losing the thread of something that you're trying to describe or talk about to somebody. And it's called Unraveled. I started on a story with a sudden scintillating twist and wove its twists and turns to trap the listener's eager minds. I lingered on diverting larks of deep and elegant description, drawing laughs and wonders and daring interjections. We explored together in the wilds I'd woven, and there wandered down the winding ways and windy backwaters, through newfound forests and unexpected swamps, and wound up on the soft sands of a shore I'd never seen before, where the crash of white waters and the tumble of teasing waves stole away my punchline with the other pebbles smoothed among the shelves. And I hoped that my expectant audience had also wandered off along the way and might now be too deep in the wondrous woods beyond to ponder what exactly was my point.
Yeah.
And our story today is called Fun and Games, but not both at once. When Kasey's family decided to move to the country, she made them promise that she could come back often to stay with her uncles Reg and Vick. The main purpose of this was not really the company of her uncles. Whilst Kasey liked them, she thoroughly disapproved of the way that they pretended to lack sport and going to the gym. Really, Kasey knew they were just afraid of being left out of social events and wanted to hang out at places where attractive trainers worked and where there were gym cafes. As far as Kasey could tell, they knew almost nothing about the sports they supported. Kasey had a great sense of duty and honour in relation to sports and training for them, and she had already told Uncle Reg quite clearly that if she was in charge of the gym, he would get banned. However, she did like many things about her uncles, which mostly made up for the insult to sports. In particular, Kasey appreciated the way that Reg and Vick could muster enormous enthusiasm for whatever their current situation or activity might be. They were much more fun than most adults in this respect, and occasionally more fun than other children who Kasey considered to be too serious. It was only when it came to sport or plants that seriousness was in order. Kasey's foremost reason for demanding the right to stay with her uncles, however, was Florrie. Florrie had been Kasey's main friend at school for several years. Whilst Florrie's sporting abilities were roughly comparable to Uncle Vick's, she made no false statements or pretenses about liking or understanding sports. She also did understand about plants. Kasey and Florrie's primary school garden beds bore a striking similarity to parts of their gardens at home, owing to Kasey's inherited skills in taking cuttings and saving seeds. Since their teachers didn't really expect children Kasey and Florrie's age to be taking the school plants home, this had mostly gone unnoticed at school, and both children had developed somewhat dubious habits when it came to public, or sometimes private, gardens. They called themselves the druidesses, and understood quite clearly the low odds of making any new friends who could earn the right to share this title. So it was clear that Kasey's move to a farm, although delightful in the opportunities it would provide for planting things, could not be allowed to interfere with the regular meeting of the druidesses in any way. Reg and Vick were, as with most things, very enthusiastic about Kasey's visiting. They didn't really understand about plants, but they did understand about fresh produce for dinner parties, a lot of which came from plants, so that was sufficient. Before her move, they made a few attempts at getting to know Florrie's mum, Nita, which went pleasantly enough without her being someone they'd particularly seek out. Nita liked to go for coffee at places where Vic would inevitably show his true coffee snob colours. So Reg developed an agreement with their friend Andre, where Andre would call Vic after half an hour and distract him from going on about the coffee in Nita's presence. This was fairly effective, and no offence was caused by Vic's coffee preferences. So far, so good for the smooth meeting of the druidesses. After 2 weeks of Kasey living in the country, her first trip back to stay with her uncles and meet with Florrie felt overdue. There were plants on the block out in the countryside that Kasey had never seen before, and she was itching to bring a collection of seeds and cuttings back to Florrie. Consequently, she was driving her Aunt Nell up the wall. She kept pointedly leaving the collection of plant bits in inconvenient places. On the bathroom sink, next to Aunt Nell's breakfast bowl, in front of the toilet, and on one occasion, on Aunt Nell's bed, shedding bits of soil, caterpillars, seeds, and roots. Eventually, Nell rang Vic and informed him that Kasey would be delivered to him and Reg the following weekend, come rain, hail, shine, or as the case was, it being the middle of the local Pride celebrations. Vic informed Reg, who did his best to respond with his usual enthusiasm. Then he rang Florrie's mum, Nita, to arrange the necessary catch-up with Florrie. Nita didn't answer her phone, so Reg attempted to explain to her voicemail service what the situation was and when they might be able to get the children together. Hi, Nita, it's Reg, Kasey's uncle. Nell's had enough of plants. Well, no, Nell likes plants, of course, hence moving to a farm. She's growing some wonderful sweet corn for us, actually. Where was I? She's tired of Kasey's plants. So Kasey's being sent our way this weekend, and we're meant to organise for her to see Florrie so she can hand over this new plant collection. But it's Pride, which doesn't matter, but it will be very busy at the coffee shops. So I was thinking we could try Saturday or Sunday lunch, and I had a thought. I'm afraid I've now completely forgotten what my idea was. Well, if you'll give me a call or a text back, we can go from there, I suppose. Just let us know when you're free or when Florrie can be spared, I guess. Yeah, okay, see ya. He hung up and looked at Vic. I have no idea what I'm doing. At dinner time, a text came back from Nita. It said, I'm having a weekend away with my boyfriend this weekend. Florrie's godmother, Ada, will be staying with her. She can bring Florrie to see Kasey. Just plan the time with her. I'll let you know her contact details. So much for thinking ahead by getting to know Nita, sighed Reg. Ada was just arriving back home with Florrie after school when her phone buzzed with a message from a number that wasn't in her contacts list. She eyed it suspiciously as she unlaced her roller skates. Owing to her history of Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which could drastically affect her perception of size, time, and distance, Ada did not drive motorised vehicles. Florrie was absolutely fine with this, since it made for all sorts of alternative transport adventures when her tante visited. This visit, they'd been trying out all the possible variations of skating and non-motorised scooting. Both of them fell down quite a bit, but that was all part of the fun, as long as you wore knee and elbow pads, helmets, and good socks. All Ada could see of the incoming message without opening it was, "Hi Ada, my name is Reg." This seemed unlikely to be followed by a legitimate text. "Scheußlich, dreadful," she tusked, locking her screen and hanging up Florrie's school bag for her on the hook in the hallway. Florrie peered up at her. "What's awful?" "Some stranger has sent a text to me. Probably a trick," Ada replied, pulling Nita's elderly ferret, Sausage, away from the coat rack. Florrie grabbed at Ada's phone. What's their name? Ada held the phone out of reach. Reg, but it probably isn't their real name. They probably want me to tell them how to get my money or give them my ID. Reg! Florrie bounced up and down, forgetting that she was yet to remove her second roller skate.
Oh.
She lost her footing and fell heavily on her bottom, narrowly missing the ferret, who was now wiggling in and out of the shoes on the floor. Ow! Florrie rubbed her bottom, and Ada steeled herself for crying and first aid. But Florrie had not lost her enthusiasm. Open it, Tante. Reg is Kasey's uncle's name. Kasey might be here. She has loads of plants. We FaceTimed and I could barely see her. Ada looked at her goddaughter skeptically, not entirely clear on why that last statement was a good thing. Then she sighed and opened the message. Ah, you're right. It is Kasey's uncle, and he would like us to go to lunch at their house on Sunday. It seems Kasey has successfully grown some plants that produce food, and now they want to cook with the fresh ingredients. Florrie pulled off her second roller skate and got up, grinning. Yay! Ada was not entirely in agreement with this sentiment. It is a bit weird for me to come to their house when they do not know me, she remarked, leading the way into the kitchen and getting out the biscuits. Florrie got up on a stool at the counter and gave Ada an imploring look. But Tante, it's to see Kasey. She lives far away now. Ada put the kettle on and got herself a cup from the cupboard, pushing Sausage the ferret down from the counter. All right, understood. Where do Kasey's uncles live? Florrie shrugged. In town, not far. All right, then. We will go there and have lunch, Ada conceded. But if it gets awkward, we will pretend that we also have a dinner event, so we can't stay too long. Agreed? Florrie gave Ada a disapproving look, then folded her arms. Okay. Vic was looking wide-eyed at Reg over a glass of sparkling apple juice. You asked them to come here for lunch? Reg looked suitably guilty. I didn't think about it. I thought Kasey would have fun cooking with the produce she's bringing. Vic rolled his eyes. Sure, but now we can't leave. It's our place. We'll be stuck with this Ada character until she decides it's time to go. We've never met her, and we'll have to do all the dishes. Reg spread his hands. Would you like to meet her at the coffee shop in the park, surrounded by the crowd from Pride, which we won't at that time be able to participate in with the loudspeakers carrying on? Or would you like to play chef and maybe get to play some fun games together too? Vic tried to keep looking at Reg with a stern face, but his eyes sparkled at the chef idea, and he did usually have a lot of fun playing Kasey's versions of games, and he did love to organise things. Shall I plan some games and desserts? He asked. Reg smiled. Absolutely. And if it turns out to be awkward, we can just set a time limit by saying we have dinner plans or a birthday event in the evening or something. Call Andre and ask him to be on standby for a spontaneous phone call reminding us we're meant to be going out. What dish do I make with fresh produce to show off my cooking but still please the kids? Vic pondered. At Florrie's house, Ada was trying to distract Sausage the ferret with bits of boiled egg while zooming in and out of Google Maps with her free hand. Florrie, she said crossly, I thought you said Kasey's uncles lived quite close to you. They do, don't they? Florrie objected, coming to see the map. Perhaps with a car they do, Ada replied. With rolling shoes, it is not so close. Florrie giggled. Skates, Tante. She tapped on the directions tab. Look, the tram goes most of the way from the market. Can we skate to the tram? She looked at Ada hopefully. All right, Ada sighed. You will need to wake up early and do your homework. On Sunday, Ada and Florrie set out from home on their skates at 10:30 a.m. because Google had informed them that the tram would only be coming once every 40 minutes. Florrie was in high spirits, a large Tupperware container with damp paper towel in it packed in her backpack for plant cuttings, and a package of freshly baked biscuits squeezed in on top. She zoomed along the footpaths, kicking up sprays from puddles and leaf litter, and only occasionally wobbling or threatening to topple over the curb. The two of them slid up to the tram stop with 15 minutes to spare, grabbing onto the shelter poles as a means of braking that was less likely to result in falling down than trying to use any of the traditional methods of stopping on skates. Ada swung around to the front of the shelter and looked at the small screen. It was announcing a tram in 25 minutes' time to somewhere called Wattenborough. Is that the right direction for Reg and Vick's house? Asked Ada. Or should we be on the other side of the road? Florrie frowned. I don't know. Google didn't say Wattenborough. It said the red line. Ada watched the screen. This one is on the purple line. She got out her phone and scrolled for a while. Florrie, I'm afraid that the red line doesn't come to this stop. What? Florrie frowned at Ada's screen. But why did Google show the line from here to there? Ada pursed her lips. I'm not sure. Perhaps it is missing an update. She considered. I suppose we could get on this line and just go into town and then change. It is going the correct direction, nicht wahr? Florrie shrugged. Yeah, I think. They turned to the ticket machine on the platform, which was a strange dome-topped unit resembling R2-D2 from Star Wars. Some very fine print ran below slots and sensors of various sizes. Ada peered at it. Coins may be used in the following denominations: 20 cent, $2, 5 cent. Well, all of mine are these ones. She showed Florrie a handful of $1.50 coins. Are any of these right? No. Florrie poked around in the front pocket of her backpack. I have a $2, but we need to pay more. She stood up to read the rest of the fine print. Orange Pay or MasterCard can be used. Ada narrowed her eyes at the machine. I do not have an orange device, she snapped, in a tone that implied this should be very obvious. And my card is not that sort. We will have to get change from somewhere. Florrie looked around. Ooh, Tante, can we go in this cafe and test their cakes? Ada shrugged. No reason not to, but don't get too full for lunch. Your friends' uncles might think you're rude, not appreciating their food. The cafe had plants hanging from the ceiling and some soft jazz music playing with tiny artworks of birds on the walls that had been created using collage. Ada approached the counter while Florrie walked on tiptoe behind her, trying to see if she could reach any of the hanging flora. Florrie, Ada warned, we will not be welcome if you pick the decor. She took hold of Florrie's elbow and firmly guided her towards the cake case. What would you like to try? Florrie didn't even look at the contents of the display. Eclair. I always try the eclair to see if they're any good at pastry. Ada redirected Florrie's gaze, placing a hand either side of her head and turning it. And what if they do not have eclairs? Florrie looked incredulous. Then they're no good at pastry. Ada gave her a carefully blank look. I see. So you will not be wanting anything then? Florrie glared. I didn't say that. She thought about it. Mud cake. If they're any good at cake, the mud cake will have perfect texture. Very well. Ada gave the server a $20 note to split. After the cake, which Florrie declared to be satisfactory but not outstanding, the two of them made their way back to the tram stop with more appropriate coins and boarded a purple line tram. The tram set off in the direction of the centre of town, and Ada and Florrie started playing a game of tell that person's story based on their fellow passengers and people on the street outside. At Reg and Vick's, meanwhile, Kasey was in an altercation with the Wii console, which was attempting to install a system update and seemed to have got stuck partway through. It won't run those indie games if it's stuck in the past, Kasey complained. Now it won't even turn on. Never mind it then, Vick sighed. We'll have plenty of our own made-up games. Why don't you try to think of some plant-themed game ideas? Kasey perked up at this. Okay. She stole the little whiteboard that Vick used for marketing ideas from the corner of the kitchen. My phone's doing something weird, Reg announced. It froze, so I rebooted it. Then it updated all the apps at once and restarted, and now it won't go past the loading screen. Kasey shook her head at him, still drawing things on the whiteboard. Did you give Vick Ada's number too? Reg looked guilty. I didn't think about it. Ada and Florrie were at a tram stop. It wasn't in town, on account of the fact that the tram had gone express to a stop out a different side of town while they'd been distracted playing their game. Florrie had managed to make herself very unpopular with the other passengers by speaking a little bit too loudly when making up their stories and going a little bit overboard with some of the details. Ada didn't dare to ask any of them for directions. Instead, they made their way back up the road on their skates. And Ada hoped that there might be an opportunity to hitch a ride with somebody. Most people, unfortunately, were suspicious of hitchhikers and pretended not to see them. Ada had a blister and Florrie was worried about her plant box drying out. Then, finally, they heard the swish of slowing tires and the shadow of a vehicle appeared at the curb beside them. It wasn't a very big shadow. Ada turned and saw a quad bike idling at the gutter, its rider's face obscured by an impressive tinted helmet visor and feet hidden in enormous ankle-high studded boots. Ada eyed the rider with a certain wariness. Where you headed? Came the voice from behind tinted plastic. At least we've already got helmets on, Florrie offered cheerfully. When Ada eventually rang the doorbell at Vick and Reg's house, Reg opened the door looking flustered with his phone in his hand. Sorry if you've been trying to get in touch, he puffed. My phone tried to improve itself and in fact broke itself. Perhaps a lesson for us all. He ushered them in, and Florrie ran into the kitchen to join Kasey, leaving Ada and Reg standing awkwardly in the hallway. Vick's on the live chat trying to get tech support for me, Reg explained, sticking out a hand to shake. I'm Reg, by the way. I suppose you must be Ada. I am, yes, Ada replied a little stiffly. There was a crash from the direction of the kitchen, and Reg and Ada both rushed in to see what kind of destruction their young people had caused. Instead, they saw Vick's laptop on the ground, and Vick giving it little kicks with the shiny toe of his fanciest shoes. I take it the live chat was unhelpful, remarked Reg, picking the computer up. Perhaps we can try the helpline quickly. Well, now my computer is broken too, exclaimed Vick, actually stamping his foot. Kasey and Florrie looked on from where they'd sat themselves at the kitchen counter, apparently finding this behaviour from an adult quite entertaining. Reg took Vick's phone and called Orange support. After a weird pause, a robotic voice answered and asked Reg to categorise his inquiry. If you need support for computer updates or login, please press 1. If you need assistance unlocking your phone, please press 2. If you need help with Wi-Fi, please press 3. For issues with apps or installation, please press 4. The recording stopped and waited expectantly for Reg to make a selection. What about other? What if I want to talk to a person? Reg fumed. What if it's all of the above? The line remained silent. Everybody stood in the kitchen, looking at Vic's phone. After an extensive pause, the robotic voice said, "Please state the nature of your query in a clear voice. We will assign you to the appropriate customer support representative for your issue." Reg rolled his eyes. "Phone and laptop both frozen," he intoned. "Sorry," answered the computerized voice. "I didn't quite catch that. If your device is behaving abnormally, try turning it off and on again before seeking further assistance." Reg groaned. The line went silent again. "Please state the nature of your query in a clear voice," crackled the phone once again. "Update broke phone," Vic half shouted. "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that." "Ah!" Ada stepped forward. "Devices hanging following updates," she told the phone. It went quiet for a moment. "Has an update caused a problem with your device? If yes, please press 1. Reg and Vic's eyes widened. "That computer understands Tante's German accent better than it understands you," Florrie laughed, pointing at Reg. Reg took the phone and computer into the bedroom and closed the door. Vic, who had apparently now recovered from his computer tantrum, got some newly baked veggie crisps out of the oven and set them on the table. "Sorry about all our tech troubles interrupting," he sighed. "Kasey, why don't you tell us about your plant game that you've made up, and we can do something fun." Kasey got up and went to get her whiteboard. "So, it's like Guess Who," she announced, "except instead of celebrities, we have types of plants. Everyone picks a species out of the mixing bowl, and then you have to describe it without naming it, and we'll all try to guess what it is." Florrie jumped onto the couch. "Yeah!" "What if we do not know the plant that we pick?" asked Ada, frowning. "They're easy ones," Kasey promised earnestly. Replied Vic. 15 minutes later, a frustrated Ada was surrounded by a number of bits of paper bearing plant names that she did not know, and was staring at geranium, which she did know, but could think of no words to describe. "It goes up sometimes, and other times it is a shrubbery," she tried. Kasey and Florrie looked at each other, then back at her, excitedly as though they were trying to read her mind, but failing. "It is a flower made of many flowers." "Agapanthus," shouted Vic. "No, that never goes up," Ada told him matter-of-factly. "It has leaves like lily pads." "Cheating," yelled Kasey exuberantly. "You're not allowed to name other plants." Florrie pouted at her. "You didn't say that rule." Ada, however, saw a chance for escape. "You caught me. I was cheating. Now I am out." She put all her bits of paper back in the mixing bowl and moved away. "Can we play a different game?" Vic asked Kasey. "I think the adults are a bit too novice compared with you two when it comes to plants." "All right," sighed Kasey reluctantly. "We could do food dares," Florrie proposed. Vic glanced at her warily. "What is that? It sounds dangerous." Kasey grinned. "It's just a list of dares that have something to do with eating or food. Whoever's bravest and does the most of them wins." Reg finally came back out of the bedroom at this juncture with a working laptop, and Florrie pounced on it to look up the list. "So they get worse as you go down," she explained. "If you clean a lot, this first one can be nothing. The dare is to lift up a couch cushion, and if there's anything underneath, you have to put it in your mouth for 10 seconds. Blah, spat Reg. "Igot," said Ada. "But there might be nothing," Florrie pointed out. "What else is on the list?" asked Kasey. Let everyone choose some things from the fridge to mix together, and you have to eat it. Get a big mouthful of ice cream and don't swallow while everyone tells jokes. Okay, Reg interrupted. I think we'd better play a game with less potential for food poisoning or choking. This led, eventually, after some protests from Florrie and Kasey, to a game of mind reading, in which the two parties were required to stare into one another's eyes and make up a description of what the others were thinking. Ada found herself uncomfortably close to Reg, who looked alarmed at her stare. Reg is thinking that I am frightening and he hopes I will not come over too often, she said, rather too bluntly. Reg looked like he wasn't sure what he could say to this. No, of course not, he trailed off. Ada is thinking that we're terrible at selecting beer and we need lessons from her. Ada snorted. That is true, I confess. I was going to complain all the way home. You do not buy the Imperial Stout as the first test of a brewery, Reg. Always lager or vice beer. Or mudcake as a test of a cafe, because if they don't have eclairs, then they suck. Florrie contributed helpfully. And Vic is thinking that I don't like his carbonara, but really it's just because I had mudcake first. Oh, Vic mused. Then, I wasn't thinking that at all, don't worry. He turned to look at Ada. Ada is thinking that carbonara is a good test of savoury foods at a restaurant, but she doesn't trust me to make it at home. Not true, Florrie laughed. I don't think Ada's had carbonara before, have you, Tante? Anyway, what to order to test food depends on the restaurant, and it's probably always the most boring thing on the menu. Why? Asked Vic, eyeing her with interest now. Because that's what they think is easy, and when I think something is easy, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes what? Florrie shrugged. I forgot what I was going to say. The mind reading game, whilst not exactly comfortable, proved the most popular activity in comparison to the other completely failed games. Florrie, who was presumably getting tired thanks to the long roller skating, quad bike, hitchhiking trip to get here, kept losing the thread of what she was trying to say people were thinking and going off on strange tangents featuring plants and wishes. And Kasey is thinking that she grew some broad beans and they got very tall. And then she was dreaming that she could go in them and climb up to a tree house, but then she was worried because I forgot now. And there were sheep, and she knows I don't like sheep. So she was thinking about butterfly bush, and Gran likes butterfly bush, but there was none at the park. Ada watched Florrie with some amusement. I think it must be time for us to go and get dinner. She picked up her handbag. Vic's phone rang. Hello, Andre. Oh, yes, of course. We completely forgot. I'm so sorry. We'll be there soon. Okay, see you in a bit. Bye. Reg looked at Vic. Do we have to go out? Ada and Florrie were just packing up anyway. He looked confused. We forgot Andre's birthday barbecue, Vic replied, rushing to the fridge and pulling out some wine and hummus. Oh, yes, answered Reg, making no move to actually get ready to leave. Kasey looked up from where she was helping Florrie pack all her plant cuttings. Do I have to get ready to go, or are you just doing an exit strategy? She asked tactlessly. Reg hid behind the fridge door. Vic sighed. No, we really did forget Andre's birthday barbecue. You both need to get ready now. Ada laughed. It is fine. We also had such an exit strategy in mind. It is strange when you have never met. Vic nodded, embarrassed. This was fun though, after all, he tried. Florrie and Kasey looked at each other and snorted. Said no one ever, laughed Kasey. I think you should let us go bowling or something next time. Florrie pulled her face. It's right. It's okay. Tante and I would knock people out on other bowling lanes at bowling. Ada surveyed the room, a sense of growing amusement and a certain amount of need for revenge filling her chest. Oh, no, she told them. I am not here often, but next time I am, you must visit us for games and a meal. I have some extremely fun games in mind for you.
Oh, well done.
Right. So before we get too carried away, any requests for December?
Oh wait, I had one.
You had one. Can you remember what it was?
When you bring too much of something to a party and you just leave it behind to get rid of it.
Okay. On purpose? Are we talking like we've got all
like
this
you
thing?
buy a 20-kilo watermelon and you take it to a party and you leave 19 kilos of watermelon.
Funny you should say that.
Have you ever looked at beekeeping traditions in England?
Beekeeping traditions in England.
Often.
Yeah, apparently there's all these things like if a beekeeper dies, then some of the family has to go tell the beehive, you know, your beekeeper has died, you know, we'll still look after you. And they'll put like black mourning ribbons on the beehive, and then whoever takes over has to come introduce themselves. And it's all like they're treated as like part of like the establishment in like a lord's manor kind of thing. Like,
right. So bees are like an inheritance, and you've got to tell the bees because they're. I feel like that's come up in a book or something, that like telling the bees, but yeah, like someone has to tell the bees. I can't
put telling the bees.
telling the bees. So beekeeping traditions in England, and I'll put in brackets telling the bees. Dad, you have to give me a central topic for next time because you're a new patron.
Yes.
Oh, do I?
Yeah. So you don't have to think of it now, but
I definitely will. Finding your way on the London Underground.
Oh, I rather like that. Go with our beekeeping traditions.
Yes.
Do the bees know how to find their way on the
No, nobody knows.
off the top of my head, that situation would be fun with Frasier and the LARPing grannies.
The LARPing granny. Yes. And I could take the LARPing grannies to London Mardi Gras. That's possible. Yeah. I think Betty would go for like a LARPing convention or something with it, but she might get lost. Well, yes. Lost. The wrong thing.
Yeah.
They're at each other's ones.
Does Albie and his giraffe onesie fit into the timeline?
Albie, how old is Albie? Well, I can look it up for you.
You just want to see Barry in his onesie again, Mark.
You know, and dress up as Albie.
I want the giraffe onesie back in.
Well, when you said Margaret was in her pajamas, I was like, can we make next time have a pajama party theme somehow?
Oh, that would be fun. Except I don't have pajamas. I just sleep in like t-shirts and track pants. No, I don't have anything. I have an hoodie. I can wear my hoodie. Yeah.
I have a topic.
Yes.
The debatable topic of when is it too early to put up your Christmas tree?
Oh, yeah.
I still have one strand in my living room that's up from last year because, like, I took down most things. There's just one strand at the top of the window where I'm like,
to take them down.
Can't reach. Oh well.
Okay. So Albie is Albie and Co are the same age as Betty, the LARPing elderly lady's grandchild. So they could feasibly be in something together. That's an interesting mix of generations there. We'll have all ages in the next story if we have that combination of characters. Yeah. Very, very age inclusive. Yeah. Yeah. So that's good.
I think you should
That'll
have
be
one more
interesting.
topic, and that
One
would
more?
be sizes.
As in like sizes of clothing?
Sizes of shoes, clothes, and all the rest of it.
Shoes,
So no sizes are the
like
same.
there's no, the way that there's no standardization.
There's no standardization.
Yeah.
You buy
Yes.
English size 7, you've got an Australian size 9 3/4, or an American
European
7.4.
38.
Yeah, 12,
yes.
7, 32, whatever.
That's storm damage.
Oh, that's a nasty one.
The request was storm damage for those. I don't know how well you hear the people who are not sitting near of sizes. All right, well, we could have some storm damage. I'm a bit worried about storm damage plus beekeeping. But and let's have a look at when our story will be. You can always add more topics if things occur to people. You can put them in the chats and I'll include them. I'm just going to have a look at the calendar. Now, it'll be a short gap because this is a week later than Storytime usually is today. So it should be on the 10th of December. Saturday the 10th of December. And how are we feeling about the time? Is this all right for those over here or this side? Bedtime story?
Yeah.
Was okay? Yeah.
We comfortably ate a meal before.
We ate food before,
which I
yeah.
think was quite good.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stick with it then, allowing our UK folks to still be at 10 a.m. So it's a little bit less in bed kind of time. The 9 o'clock might be for some people. So the 10th of December, which gives me only actually like 2.5 weeks or something.
Yes, and you've only got like 12 days after you get home.
That's all right. We'll see how I go. If it's a problem, I'll let you all know. Thank you very much, everybody. I think it's probably time to switch off the recording, and we will say goodbye until December. Everyone who's watching retrospectively, we'll see you next time in December.